He also comes up with something which is a very important idea, 128, when he actually raises the question of war. Now, he doesn't discuss this very much, but here too, it's one of those one-liners, which I think is actually really very important. The impact of war, he writes, is self-evident, since economically, it is exactly the same as if the nation would drop part of its capital into the ocean. That is, this war is a fantastic means of devaluation. And if you have surplus, and if you have a lot of surplus around and you have overaccumulation of capital, what better way to get rid of it than war or military expenditures? One of the arguments I would make is that since 1945, there's been a constant tendency within the history of capital towards overaccumulation and surplus, creation of surpluses. And one of the ways in which the surpluses get absorbed is to be absorbed in a non-productive way, i.e. tipped into the ocean, which is through military expenditures. And the military industrial complex, which got started to be talked about in the Eisenhower administration, has been one of the key ways in which the US has dealt with its constant tendency toward overaccumulation of capital. That would be my interpretation. The other way is by crazy, senseless, idiotic urbanization of the Hudson Yards sort, So there are all sorts of ways in which you could do that. But so what Marx does here is to say that war, and if you include in that military expansion and militarization and all the rest of it, is a fantastic way in which you can actually deal with certain kind of economic issues. Ronald Reagan came in protesting he was going to be a neoliberal and austerity president, and therefore they had to cut all these social expenditures and all the rest of it. But he used the Cold War and got into an arms race with then the Soviet Union to absorb a vast amount of surplus capital in militarization and an arms race. And that, curiously, when you look at where the arms industry exists in the United States, you see it basically runs from Seattle down through Los Angeles, through Texas, up to North Carolina. It's a big sort of arc like that, all of which were great supporters of Reagan. And Reagan paid them off by an arms race, which the armaments industries in those states really took off. And it was a great way of absorbing surplus productive capacity. Because, and at some point or other, the thing about arms is at some point or other, it's not a bad idea to use them. So actually what we're seeing right now, of course, is a tremendous expansion of the US economy through all of this money that's going to the arms industry, going to Ukraine. So it is interesting that when Biden kind of says that we're giving $40 billion to Ukraine, they're not giving $40 billion to Ukraine, they're giving $40 billion worth of equipment made in the United States to Ukraine. So the $40 billion is basically circulating, and to the degree that we're not in a recession in the United States right now has a lot to do with the prosperity of the arms industry. Again, this is a kind of a little comment that comes out of the Grundrisse that I tend to make a lot of, and you may feel